Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.
This show is brought to you by Audible. They are the leading provider of spoken audio information and entertainment. You know I'm a huge Audible fan because you can listen to audiobooks whenever and wherever you want. Whether you're at the beach, the gym, or stuck in traffic, there's nothing quite like Audible. Go to audiblepodcast.com/Lutz and sign up today. You are listening to the financialsurvivalnetwork.com. I'm Kerry Lutz on 1230 WBZT. Back with us by critical acclaim is Darryl Schoon. We're talking about the collapse of Western civilization, but lo and behold, it looks like it's the collapse of all of civilization, the entire global economy. Will gold and silver be left standing? Well, those are the questions you need to be thinking about. Darryl, welcome back.
I'm glad, happy to be here, Kerry.
Hey, we got so much feedback last time, so many downloads, couldn't believe it, so we had to have you back on. I mean, God, can you believe what's going on out there?
You know, in retrospect, it makes sense, but when it happens, it still takes you by surprise. You know, I predicted the collapse back in, you know, I predicted it before it happened, and one of the people I knew, you know, he didn't expect it to happen. He was wealthy, top of the pile, you know, and he asked me what I thought later. I said, you know, even to those who expected it, it's still a shock.
You know, you can never prepare for the inevitable. That's what it all comes down to.
Because it's going to happen in its own way. It's going to happen in its own inimitable way. And we are in a period of just, they've raised the ante to such a degree that, you know, this is why markets are selling off, commodities, stocks, and bonds. Everything is selling off right now. It's not selling off because they've done something. It's selling off because the rumor is out there they're going to do something. That's how edgy things are. It's not like the punch bowls was taken out of the room. We're sitting in the room. They're still offering the canapes. The women are dressed in pearls. The men are in tuxes. All right? We're pretty blasted. We've been having a great time, and we're the only people in this room. There's not a lot of people in the room. You know, most people are out in the hallways. They're starving or down in the streets, and they're throwing rocks at us. You know, we're on the top floor of this place. I mean, we are in the elite of the elite of the elite. And we're in this room, and all of a sudden, your close friend turns to you and says, hey, I hear they're going to take the punch bowl away. And all of a sudden, punch bowl's still there. It's still there. The Fed is still putting $85 billion a month into the system. It's still in the room. We can walk over right now, put our glasses underneath it, and drink from it just like they did in Jonestown with Jim Jones's Kool-Aid. It's still there, all right? Hasn't moved an inch. But when that friend turns to us and he says, I just heard from the catering company that they're going to yank the punch bowl, and when all of a sudden, the whole room emptied. And that's what's going on. The punch bowl's still there. It's still, the Fed is still buying $85 billion worth a month. All right, pumping it artificially into the economy. All right, that's what you got to get. How extreme this is. The punch bowl will never move. That spigot is still going. It's only the rumor that they were going to take it out of the room that sent everybody to the outside in the hallway, trying to get out of the elevator, trying to get out of the building, trying to get in their limos, all at the same damn time. Hey. That, Kerry, shows you how edgy things are at this moment.
And if I can paraphrase the late, great Senator Daniel Moynihan, the plural of anecdote is not data. However, last night I had a little disaster. I moved my house. Of course, my computer died, and the show must go on. So I found myself at the Apple South Beach store at 10 o'clock last night. Like I have nothing better to do, and I'm mentally and physically exhausted. I'm falling asleep on my feet, Darryl. And the damn place is packed to the rafters.
Oh no.
And they're not just like getting their stuff fixed. They're buying stuff right and left. So I buy a new computer, and today I go back to the Palm Beach garden store to try to get my machine fixed because I couldn't restore it for whatever reason. And I'm there today at the Palm Beach garden store, 2 stores separated by 85 miles.
Yeah.
Same picture. All right. They're buying the damn store out, Darryl. So the punch bowl might still be full, but these people are still buying the Apple stuff. Apple might be at 400. It just held above 400.
Yeah.
These people are still buying it. I think Apple is the equivalent of the cosmetics industry in the Great Depression. Women are buying the cosmetics, even though the kids are starving and they're, selling apples on the street corner, because those women are not going to give up their lipstick and their powder and whatever. And in this Greater Depression, you're not giving up your iPad, you're not giving up your iPhone, and you're not giving up your Mac. Your kids might starve, but you're not giving up those luxuries. That's where I think we're at in this crazy depression. And, you have a virtual bread line, which is called the EBT card.
Yeah, it is. We're living in a reality of disconnect, Kerry. All right, because the powers that be have gotten a lot smarter. They are. I mean, what is it? The Depression happened in the 1930s, and this is 80 years later. All right. And not only that, they've gotten a whole lot smarter. This is the reason why, when the banking system collapsed in 1929, 1930. 2 years later, I think 25% of the banks were shuttered. They were gone. The savings were gone, and they had a precedent to work off of. So when it happened here again in 2000, when the dot-com bubble collapsed, all right, they tried hoping it would self-seal like a tire on your car,
run flat tire.
This thing self-seals. Yeah, who said? Well, Alan said it'll self-seal. All right, Greenspan, but it didn't. The Nasdaq had lost 80%. S&P was down, I think, 60. And so what happened is in 2001 they slashed interest rates down to 1%. And Greenspan even said, this is highly unusual, because usually what you try and do is you let a deflationary rendering suck all the excess liquidity out, leverage out of the market so it can start again in a stable fashion. Well, what Greenspan didn't understand was that 25 years at the helm, feeding the markets with excess credit, you couldn't, one collapse, one hit to the midsection wasn't going to straighten it out. It was like a person who's been drinking 30 years. 2 days of not drinking may seem like hell, and I'm sure it does, but your liver ain't going to recover in 2 days. All right? Your kidneys aren't going to recover. Your brain's not going to recover. All right? But the patient couldn't take the pain. So 1% interest rates reflated the economy with a property bubble. It collapsed. When the property bubble collapsed, it was so bad that interest rates the next year, they didn't take them down to 1% because they'd gone up to 5.5%, right? Because they thought we were healthy again.
Mm-hmm.
It collapsed. They took it this time down to 1%, which shows what? That it is far worse. All right? So it is far, far, far worse. Now, they've had the United States economy, the global economy, on life support since then. The Chinese over there, they were new to the table of capitalism, all right? But they're real good at making money, at printing, all right? So they flooded their economy with paper money, with excess credit after 2008 through their government units, all right? Because the whole deal is when you have a collapse of private demand, and this is what a depression really is. This is what happened in the 1930s. When you have a collapse of private demand, what you try and do, I mean, the Keynesians, the theory was you just, you spend more money and bring it back up. That's a Keynesian theory. Well, Friedman's theory was the same goddamn thing. Friedman's theory was, expand the money supply but give it to the rich people first. So the rich people love Friedman. They hate Keynes. Republicans and Democrats, men and women, same goddamn thing. All right, same things going on. But then, nonetheless, the palliative is to replace collapsing private demand with Friedman hoped you could encourage private demand with cheap interest rates. It didn't work. All right, what it did create speculative bubbles. The Keynesian theory was, well, you just substitute public demand for private demand. Well, it only works so far. All right, but that's what they did in 2009, 10, 11, and 12. All right, and now all of a sudden they've reached the point where, I'm going to talk about on my next article why Bernanke said what he said, because there's a reason he said it. Nobody's quite sure, because it may or may not have done what Bernanke thought it was going to do. All right, and it's like if you're driving a Porsche at 120 miles an hour and all of a sudden you take a hard left, you may not even be sure how that Porsche is going to do in that corner. All right, you may not be sure that you're able to get the requisite traction under your rear wheels, so you may fishtail and come out of it well. Going at that speed, when you do that, you could end up on the curb and into the building. That's just the chances you take when you do it at 120 miles an hour and do a hard left. That's what Bernanke did. All right, so here we are. They tried to substitute public demand with private demand, and it did something. I mean, as little as credit as I want to give them, I know when they say, well, if he didn't do that, we'd be in the toilet. He's right. We would be in the toilet. All right? My theory is, hey, in 5 years they're going to repossess the toilet. 3 years they're going to repossess the toilet. We are in deep trouble. And so now here we are. We are in extremis. The condition has gotten worse. And not only is the U.S. economy is in it, you pointed out, Kerry, in the opening to this, I mean, for the first time, every economy in the world is on the same paper fiat system, central bank system. We only have a lifespan of anywhere between 60 and 80 years at the most. Sometimes it goes, you get killed at 20, or some people live to 100, but basically it's in that realm. All right. And we've had central banking all our lives. So we've grown up thinking expansion, contraction, that's normal. No, expansion and contraction happened in the 1700s when the bankers started putting in excess credit in the system. It's like goading it, like pushing it, making it grow faster. And that's what happened. All right? But it's not going to last. They didn't know how long it was going to last. It had to keep expanding. Why does their game have to keep expanding? Well, it has to keep expanding because you have debts. All money that comes into capitalist systems is introduced in the form of debt. That's what it is. It's introduced in the form of debt. And that debt compounds constantly, day and night. That debt has to be repaid. That debt only gets repaid if the economy expands. The economy expands only if things keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. England was able to do it because it was a dinky little country off the northwest of Europe, and they got a world empire. That only lasted until the 1800s, so they shifted it to the Federal Reserve to New York, and we shifted it to the rest of the world. Now the whole world's on it. There ain't anything else. Martians aren't going to come up and float a loan syndicated by the central banks so we can exploit Mars or some asteroid coming by for its mineral content. It's over. We've reached the limit. The liver can't do it anymore. It's overloaded. The liver is gone. The kidneys are going down. The brain is getting screwed. And here we are.
Yeah, it's time to come up for air, and nobody realizes that. And, the amazing thing is that China just said today to their banks, we're not bailing you out anymore, which I find hard to believe, but basically, you better go fend for yourself. If this doesn't lead to a bank run Chinese style, then nothing will. And you know what Chinese bank runs are like.
Oh, the Chinese know what Chinese bank runs are like.
I mean, they just
know. That's
forget
why
it.
The Chinese are buying gold.
Yeah.
They've been through this. They've lived through it. They know what it's like when they become insolvent. It's happened time and time before in their memory. It's not like the Chinese have longer memories than anything else. This has happened to them far more recently than we've had these kind of catastrophes in the United States. All right? They've lately come to the table, and they're nervous about the table. You know, they know that the last entree may be there may not be any more.
Yeah.
We've been used to the 24-hour buffet.
Yeah,
That's why the Chinese freaked out.
Yeah,
I tell you,
my father
know that they've screwed it up, that they've got a tight liquidity. Yeah. This is where they're at. This is where they're at. You know, Kerry, you know, I don't want to scare people.
No, wouldn't think of that.
No, I'm just saying this is history. One system is collapsing, another system's going to come. This is how history has always happened. This is what David Hackett Fisher said in his book, The Great Wave. This is exactly what, in 1981, Bucky Fuller said. Mankind was entering a period of unprecedented crisis. The power structures are going to collapse. 10 years after he said it, Russia went down, communism hit the floor. 30 years later, capitalism with its debt-based markets is hitting the floor. This is history. The fact that we're alive here is the conundrum. That's the problem. We're going to have to get through it. That's the problem. Another system is going to take its place. This crisis is going to be hair-raising. This crisis is going to, no one is prepared for what's going to happen. No one.
Yeah, well, you can't be. You know,
tomorrow's going to be what it's going to be, and we can only surmise what it's going to be like.
Yeah, you talk about hyperinflation. When my father was a pilot in World War II, he was a hump pilot, flew from India to China, overland supply route. Yeah, so he would fly to certain provinces in China where there was hyperinflation.
Yeah,
and he could buy the yuan for nothing with dollars, and then other provinces, they didn't know there was hyperinflation, and he could sell those yuan for $1 and make a killing. He didn't do it. That wasn't his thing. He just wanted to get the hell out of there. He hated it.
Exactly.
You know, he just wanted to go home to my mother and his new daughter. But, you know, they lived through it, so they knew about it. And then, of course, the communists didn't know what the hell they were doing when it came to an economy.
This is what people don't understand about communism. All right? Marx didn't even understand the goddamn thing about communism. Capitalism started in the 1700s with England, and this is where the bankers got all their power. All right? We talk about the 1% now. It started a long time ago. And so their Marx is, he's drinking, he's real smart, he's ranting and raving about how it is, and he writes his book, writes his theory. You know, I said he wrote it on schnapps at late night, you know? He said, this is what the workers of the world going to arise. Shit if they arose. You know, that doesn't know why it happened, you know? But he made this stuff up. You know, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and this is how it's going to happen, all right? Well, it didn't happen that way. Capitalism kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, all right? Bigger and bigger, and they were taking over everybody. I mean, if you're worried about the NSA, if you're worried about corporatocracy, if you're worried about Wall Street owning your ass, let me tell you, Marx saw it coming.
Yeah.
All right? He saw it coming. He didn't know what he was going to do about it. He didn't know anything, but he saw it coming, you know, and he's a good writer, and he wrote this thing, and, you know, and he gave people, oh, man, maybe there's an alternative. Well, there was an alternative. It was called Marxism, but the goddamn thing didn't work. Yeah. You know, he made it up, you know? And capitalism at least had a basis in fraud, you know?
Yeah.
And it had a basis in fraud and banking. It worked as long as it kept expanding. All right, so Marx makes this theory up. All right, and there's China and Russia. They're too big for England to swallow, but England's after them, and they know the big money from the bankers is coming after them. So, and they knew, the people who were growing up in those countries knew that their governments were so stupid, were so slow, were so fat and so dumb. They were going to eat it. They were going to eat it. So the young people rose up. All right. We said, we got to do something, and they did. Well, what could they do? Well, that damn books of Marx, Das Kapital, was floating around. They go, oh, man, we'll do this. They took over the countries. They did that. It didn't work. Lenin had gotten his finger into the mix. They turned it into a police state, and everyone was screwed. Everyone was screwed. They collapsed in 1981. The Chinese, you know, changed, and they got their ass out of there. They came late to the banker's door. They think they're hunky-dory because they're better off than they ever were under both the feudal system, under both the communist system, and they don't even realize they got to the table when the house is getting foreclosed on.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
This is where we are. This is where we are.
Exactly. Well, Darryl, we got to get going. So gold, silver, getting hit right now, but in the long run.
Faith.
Yeah.
Keep the faith. This is manipulated. The boys in power are trying to drive it down for the first time in, I can't even remember. The bullion banks are long. The bullion banks who've manipulated gold down for decades are now long on gold. It's going to change.
Yeah, no question. I agree. We're long. We're long as well. So on that note, financialsurvivalnetwork.com, go there, and hopefully we'll see you in Dallas. Darryl, it's been a pleasure.
Been a pleasure, Kerry.
The show was brought to you by Audible. If you want to listen to it, Audible has it. Would you believe they've got over 100,000 titles in virtually every genre you can think of? And don't forget, you'll get a free audiobook and 30-day trial just for signing up today at audiblepodcast.com/Lutz. That's audiblepodcast.com/LUTZ.
The Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. Get our complimentary newsletter at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. This is the Financial Survival Network.